evening, everybody. Thank you for joining me, and I'd just like to say thank you very much for allowing me to present to you. I feel very honoured in sharing my story. And it was Dawn from our Western Cape group, who's a facilitator, who said to me, you should share your story. So here I am. Hopefully I can inspire you through my story of trauma to triumph. I'm going to share 6 very big events in my life, health traumas, which I was able to overcome. And yeah, I hope I can help somebody else along the way through sharing, because we've all got a story to tell. First, I'd like to thank Mary for being the host and facilitating as well. And just a quick disclaimer, because we have to say, I'm a health coach. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a vet, as you'll find out later in the story. Everything I share with you is my personal experience, and it's for this general educational purpose to support our healthy lifestyle that I want to share this with you and the clients that you may have in future that go through the same traumas, health traumas that I have, or any other trauma. And it's important to check with your physician, your healthcare provider, before making any changes to your medication, your diet or exercise, and especially if you have any chronic health issues at all. So I'd like to begin my presentation. Firstly, I'd like to say how wonderful it is to sit here virtually. Thank goodness for COVID in one way, because I'm dressed up at the top, but I've got my pajama bottoms on underneath. So my health journey has been a roller coaster, to say the least, really. I don't think I'll give you too much background information, because that was in the introduction on the email. So I would just like to say that all began as a teenager, these health traumas, when I struggled with IBS, constant pain, bloating, constipation, diarrhea, and at 16 I decided to become vegetarian, as I discovered that I could only digest plant protein. I thought then this would solve my continued colon problems. But I became more aware as I got older that I could link the pain to my period pains and to my menstrual cycle every month. So for years I endured all this debilitating pain, often dismissed as bad period pains, IBS, or many doctors said, it's all in your head. So it was a very long, frustrating road, which seemed to always lead to nowhere for me. These symptoms affected every aspect of my life, my relationships, my mental health, and my career. And after years of doctor's visits and tests and ultrasound scans and consults and various gynecologists and a lot of misdiagnosing, this one gynecologist listened to me and eventually agreed to do a laparoscopy. Once he'd spoken to the National Health Service, of course. The diagnosis was severe endometriosis, which for me really was a double-edged sword. It was validation on one side for the pain that I'd been experiencing since I was a teenager, but also the difficult news that only viable long-term solution was a hysterectomy. So at 24, this was a life-altering decision for me, but eventually I had to choose between a better quality of life over suffering. For me, it was a choice, not a defeat. And later in my presentation, I'll share with you how I made the link between endometriosis and diverticulitis and the sigmoid colon. And I'll explain more about this later. And this resulted in my 36,000 feet life-threatening trauma. So endometriosis, I'm sure lots of you know, but for those who don't, it's a chronic inflammatory condition where tissue similar to the uterine lining grows inside the uterus. This tissue responds to the menstrual cycle, causing bleeding and lots of complications, inflammation, and eventually it leads to scar tissue, causing cystic ovarian endometriosis, which are cysts, and these are known now as chocolate cysts because their appearance is like just a big ball of chocolate. This tissue can also invade the colon. I didn't know then, but I know now through being a health coach. It causes inflammation, pain, and severe cases, structural damage, especially to the sigmoid colon, as in my case. The sigmoid colon is part of the colon, the descending colon, that stores and propels feces towards a rectum for elimination. The global prevalence of endometriosis is high, affecting 1 in 10 ladies. And from the onset of symptoms, diagnosis can take now 7 to 10 years, but back then for me, it didn't exist. They knew very little. And it couldn't be detected on an ultrasound or examination. As this chronic disease leads to infertility, the gynecologist advised me to have children as soon as possible. Fortunately, I had my childhood sweetheart, and we'd been in a relationship for many years. So we decided to bring the marriage forward and have children early. So at 21, I had my first child, and immediately after, I began trying for a second child. Gosh, I was ecstatic when I fell on again after 3 years of trying. I was able to conceive for, I knew the last time, but I was so grateful. And during the second cesarean, the surgeon had to perform a hysterectomy at 24 and remove my uterus, which was severely affected by the endometriosis. But hey, I was happy. I got my 2 wonderful kids. The next pivotal moment in my life was a near-death experience known as NDEs. During my first emergency cesarean section, giving birth to my daughter at 21, I had a severe allergic reaction to anaesthetic. I vividly remember the feeling of leaving my body, and I was in the corner of the room. Excuse me, I beg your pardon. I was in the corner of the room, and I had a profound sense of peace and tranquility. And I saw this bright light in front of me. And I just had a feeling of being embraced by this unconditional love. I wasn't afraid. But back then, you see, we couldn't speak about things like this. They were taboo. For those of you this evening who are listening and would like to hear more detail about this encounter that I had, I'm very happy to stay on and share with you in more detail because it's very interesting. But because of the time factor, I won't go into detail just now. This vivid spiritual experience of this NDE really changed my whole life. I believe God gave me this near-death experience, a beautiful visual vision of our future in the afterlife. This fundamentally shifted my perspective on life and death. The fear of dying dissipated, and there was a paradigm shift, and I felt an urgent desire to live purposefully and meaningfully. I devoured every book I could find on NDEs, near-death experiences, including Raymond J. Moody's Life After Death, which validated my experience and brought a really deep sense of peace and understanding. This was a catalyst for my holistic transformation. Recently, I gave a presentation to our Western Cape HCA group on a book called Dying to Be Me by Anita Morjani. She had a similar experience during her battle with cancer, and her book is a memoir that recounts her NDE and her journey of self-discovery and healing. The story emphasizes themes of self-acceptance and self-compassion. Today, she speaks globally about her transformation through seminars and workshops. While research continues, it remains a topic of ongoing scientific inquiry and debate. But I'm very happy to discuss it at the end if we have time, and I do provide the names of these books on my final slide. So then, the next thing in my life, my gynecology problems didn't stop there. I still had my ovaries, which were producing estrogen. This is a huge problem for ladies who suffer with endometriosis because it reacts with the estrogen as well every month. And after many years of operations to remove cysts and tumours from both my ovaries, I was forced to say bye-bye to both ovaries in the end, because one of them had a tumour the size of a grapefruit and just a quarter of an ovary. What this endometriosis can do then in our youth and later in our life is absolutely devastating. So I said bye to my ovaries in my early 40s and reluctantly said hello to surgical menopause. Oh, I experienced rapid weight gain, hot flashes, emotional distress. And at the same time, I was dealing with the immense grief of losing my mum to cancer and recovering from cerebral malaria, all within 1 year. I felt like I was not only losing control of my body, but my mind and my whole life. Then something happened. As I was walking past this bookshop in a shopping centre, I caught my reflection in the window. I saw this bloated person looking back at me. And I thought, nah, that's not me. So I reversed, checked out this person staring back at me, and I was shocked to see that was me. Especially after years of being in the health and fitness industry, I'd let myself become a bloated beach whale, and I was determined to change. There was a book jumping out at me in the window, and it was called Body for Life by an author called Bill Phillips. Some of you might have heard of him, but there and then I had an epiphany. I decided to go in, buy the book, follow his program, and reclaim my health by entering the Body for Life competition. Now I had a purpose again and something to keep me accountable. I felt great. This program for me was more than a weight loss program. It was a holistic journey of inner and outer transformation. I committed to a rigorous regime of nutrition, mindfulness, journaling, and exercise. And at 44 years old, I was placed in the top 10 in South Africa for my holistic and outward transformation. This personal triumph led me to pay it forward. I self-published a book about my journey titled Fit, Fab, and Over 40. Why? Because I wanted to be an inspiration for menopausal women and to help guide them through their own transformation. I wanted to let them know you can do it. There's a way. Then another knock-on effect. I've always been creative and I've always enjoyed oil painting, especially recreating the works of Monet. So I turned this talent into designing gym wear. I launched my own gym wear line and named the brand Zero to Sexy. Why? Because in my life then, at 44, just before then, I felt like I was at the biggest zero in my life. I was really rock bottom. And then once I'd been through this whole transformation, for me, I felt sexy again at 44. I felt great. I felt confident. It really transformed my life. I felt good in what I was wearing. And I thought, if I can feel good in what I'm wearing at 44, I can help other ladies from their beginning of the journey who feel big and don't feel good in gym wear. If I can just get them into the gym and design something that'll help get them there. And then later we can design whatever they like. Client-led. These ladies shared with me at the end of their transformation that once they'd realised they didn't have to be a prisoner to menopause and feel stuck for the rest of their lives, they began to let go of their negative beliefs and habits that no longer serve them and began their own positive transformation to a whole holistic future like me. Virgin Active Gym in South Africa featured an article in the local newspaper showing my transformation, the before and after pictures. But the entire community joined in. They were inspired. I gave Virgin Active Gym permission to share my contact details, and I was inundated with calls from people in need who wanted to change. I'd also like to point out here that I did a lot of research on approaching the menopause in a natural way, as HRT wasn't for me. I found an organisation which I joined called the Endometriosis Society, and I discovered a plant-based estrogen called Promensil, which I'll share at the end of the presentation. This now comes in a capsule form, and you take one per day for those who want to go natural. It's derived from red clover isoflavones, which are plant-based compounds that have a mild estrogen-like effect. And they assist in alleviating symptoms of menopause. They did for me. But this was my journey. We can all choose our own journey. It took 2 years for me to be alleviated of all the menopause symptoms. And when I stopped taking it, and to this day, I have no symptom of menopause whatsoever. This is my little gold bullet. As literally within a few weeks, all my menopausal symptoms had started to dissipate. Initially, it was only available in Australia then, but I was very proactive and instrumental in making it widely available in South Africa and the UK. And as I say, I'll share the name at the end. And it's available in all pharmacies now for those who want to go the natural route. And I'd just like to add on this last point about menopause is I've recently had genetic testing done, and at my age of, I collect my pension next month from the UK, so there's a good indication. My hormones are very balanced after the genetic testing and the omega fatty acid testing. So the natural way for me has worked. So I've advocated this to my daughter, who is also going the same route, and she's now 44. These are my pictures from Body for Life transformation that shows when I was in the menopause, how big I got and bloated. This was a 12-week inner and outer holistic transformation. And we took photos every 2 weeks as a visual reminder of how I was moving forward to my future self. It was a wonderful transformation. The next life-changing story for me came with my hospice journey. Another defining moment was the death of my father, also from cancer. He moved from the UK to live with me in South Africa just after my mum died. He died in a private hospital here, and the experience was very, very traumatic. The lack of dignity and the inadequate palliative care left him with a burning vow to ensure nobody else's parent would have to die in such an undignified manner, watching their loved one die in so much pain. So I was able to channel my grief into action, and I became advocating in my community for cancer, and especially Hospice of White River, which is a province in South Africa. This was my community, and I wanted to help them. My initial involvement was small, but it grew into a relentless fundraising effort. I raised awareness, first of all, because nobody knew Hospice of White River. So nobody's going to donate to something they don't know anything about. So that was my first goal. And through sheer determination, I successfully raised over R1 million to build an inpatient unit. I think that's the equivalent to about £50,000 then. But anyway, this part of my story is crucial, as it shows that my journey of paying it forward and always overcoming things in life isn't just a response to our own traumas. It's a lifelong commitment to justice and helping others, and especially those who are at their most vulnerable. Just when I thought I'd overcome the worst, boom! There we go again. Thank you, Lord, but you've sent this for a reason. A new life-threatening challenge arose. While I was on a flight back from Dubai in 2015, I had a sudden medical emergency, which I can share with you all was pure terror for me. I'd flown to Dubai because my daughter was having my first grandchild, her first child. And while I was there in Dubai, she picked up really bad gastroenteritis. So I had to take her to the local hospital Mediclinic, and they put her on a drip for a couple of days and she was okay. And she said, Mum, will you put your flight out for a few days? I said, of course I will, my darling, yeah. So I did, and then I got on my flight a few days later, and I started about 2 hours into the flight with gastroenteritis. Well, we all know the symptoms of that. So luckily, there was a very compassionate veterinarian on the flight. The staff asked for doctors to come forward, but there wasn't any. But thank goodness for this vet. She used all her medical knowledge with the four-legged species to the two-legged. She put a drip up and administered several drugs and morphine and managed to stabilize me long enough until we landed in Cape Town. I was rushed to the hospital and admitted to ICU, where I faced a cascade of life-threatening, multiple complications and life-saving surgeries. After emergency surgery to flush out my abdomen, the first complication was sepsis, another life-threatening condition caused by the body's overwhelming response to an infection. It is a medical emergency, and it can lead to tissue damage, organ failure, and death. My ruptured colon caused bacteria to flood the abdomen and bloodstream, triggering septic shock. I remember fighting hard whilst being hooked up to many machines to keep me alive. They'd gone through every single vein you could think of in my body and eventually had to put everything into my neck. And my kids tell me to this day that there was three tubes coming from my neck, And because I was so high on morphine, I kept flicking these back saying, "Oh, I'm Bob Marley, I'm Bob Marley." And to this day, they laugh at that. For me, it felt like I had dreadlocks under the morphine, but of course it wasn't. It's just something I remember. So then a few days after, my lung collapsed due to empyema. This is a complication of sepsis. It's the accumulation of pus in the pleural cavity, which is a space between the lungs and the chest wall. It's an extremely serious condition that required life-saving surgery and multiple chest tubes for drainage and powerful intravenous antibiotics for several weeks in ICU. They think it's all over. Not yet. Then came the superbugs. Then I got MRSA, which is a particularly dangerous strain that's resistant to many common antibiotics, making infections really incredibly difficult to treat. So why did my colon rupture, you're probably asking yourselves? Well, eventually, the diagnosis was diverticulitis, aggravated by the gastroenteritis on the plane and the cabin pressure, causing the pouches in the colon to rupture, and after that, the multiple complications. I sort of knew about this chronic disease because my father and my grandmother had it, but theirs wasn't severe. It never really bothered them. But the initial cause of all this is a severe flare-up of diverticulitis. I had no previous symptoms, no idea I had this chronic colon disease. But once I'd recovered from sepsis, the surgeons removed the sigmoid colon and sepsis set in again. And now I had a stoma and a colostomy bag. My son and my daughter flew to be by my side. I'd just come back from Dubai. Now my daughter had to leave her young child, new baby, and fly back because, well, I'll explain now. They were at my bedside, and I saw both my kids crying, even though my eyes were closed. My sisters flew out from the UK and all my family, and they all thought they'd come to say farewell. Sorry. Fully believing it was the end. But this resilient lady had no intention of going anywhere just yet, as I remembered my NDE, and I knew God had plans for me here on earth. There's nothing more motivating to fight for your life than seeing your kids and your family at the end of your bed with tears in their eyes. This was my motivation and commitment to fight and survive. They went through the roof. More than 10. The one thing I learned is the power of love within friends and family, and all being there for each other. So I'm composed now, sorry about that. But here's a diagram of what diverticulosis is and how it leads to diverticulitis. As you'll see, we've got the ascending colon, the transverse colon, and then the descending colon. And this is a part that I had removed. And at the same time, they have to sew up your rectum and the diverticulitis bleeds. Here's a diverticulitis with sepsis. This is just one of the pouches that actually bursts. And as you can see on the ascending, transverse and descending colon, it's a close look at one of the pouches. Abscesses form in the abdominal cavity, leading to widespread infection. For me, I still have these pouches and I live with them every day. On the transverse colon, the ascending and the descending. But the sigmoid colon is most prone to the formation of diverticulitis because it experiences higher pressure during bowel movements, hence at 36,000 feet. After months in ICU and a long recovery period in step-down facility and at home, the multidisciplinary medical team attempted to reverse the stoma. Some of you may know what a stoma is, but I'd like to explain briefly. It's a surgical procedure to create an opening from the colon to the abdomen where a sticky plate is attached around the protruding stoma on the outside of the abdomen. So it's basically your colon that's brought through your abdomen where a bag is put on to collect your feces. I'll show you a diagram now. And that collects your fecal waste because now the rectum is sewn up. The bag has to be changed and emptied several times a day. As soon as I eat or drink, that's it, I go. Like a little doggy, really. For 5 years, I was given false hope after undergoing multiple failed reversal surgeries. Each one a new devastation and a new loss of hope. In 2023, after being admitted to ICU yet again with sigmoid colon obstruction due to adhesions, which are fibrous bands of coiled scar tissue, which had wrapped around the colon and strangled it. Suppose it's a bit like linking sausages, you know, so they'd done that in my colon and it was now like a linked sausage. The surgeons tried to insert a stent to open the sigmoid colon, but the colon walls are too weak and it ruptured again. Back to ICU, another long stay. And I'm very good friends with the ICU staff now. We WhatsApp each other all the time. Finally, I was given the diagnosis. The stoma was permanent. Now I had a hidden disability. A great time of isolation for me and despair. There was very little support from the healthcare sector once I was discharged. And once again, I had to advocate for myself and overcome this moment and this torment that I'd been through for so many years. But again, I reached a turning point and I decided, that's it. I have to be resilient. I have to look into it myself and see what I can research to help myself here and my kids. I wanted to set myself free from the psychological and emotional burden of constantly hoping for reversals. So I educated myself on living with a stoma. And I found my purpose to help others with this condition and individuals with chronic colon disease. I joined the South African Society of Stomates, which is a non-profit organisation formed by individuals with stomas across South Africa. We facilitate a holistic approach to ostomy care by bridging the gap between the private and public sectors while advocating for the rights of fellow ostomates throughout the country. There's also an organisation in the UK called Stoma UK and an international stoma association. And we have a stoma day every year worldwide. I help raise awareness through WhatsApp groups, social media platforms, and I provide emotional support and motivational speeches just to highlight the need for change. And I'd like to share some facts with you. Do you know there are 100,000 plus stoma individuals just in South Africa? Yet there are only around 600 trained stoma nurses. This is a massive gap in healthcare. And the situation for many here in South Africa is dire. The lack of access to supplies, people in impoverished areas, they're forced to make their own makeshift devices. And you'll be shocked about what I'm going to tell you. But the people who have stomas in impoverished areas have to cut a Coke can in half, put two little holes in the side, tie string to it, tie it around their waist to catch their feces, because the government won't provide the colostomy bags that they need. There are so many supplies we need on a daily basis having a stoma. I named my stoma Rosie. I'll explain why just now. And Rosie's saving my life. I'm one of the lucky ones. But many stoma products alone amount to 10,000 rand every month. That's £430 around every month, just to keep yourself alive. I mean, it's costly to be healthy, but it's more costly to be sick. Mary and I had a discussion whether to show this graphic picture of my stoma. And we decided, yeah, it's okay, because as health coaches, we'll probably have many patients who have stomas, which is a hidden disability. And if we know what they have to go through and manage this on a daily basis, it might help us all. So if you're squeamish, those of you, I would ask you to turn off your video now. But I've decided to allow myself to be vulnerable in the hope of helping you as health coaches in what stoma patients have to face every day. So here is my best friend. This is my abdomen, and this is Rosie. This is my colon, which was rerouted outside my abdomen. You see the bag here, but I thought I'd try and show you this. I don't know if you can see it. Is it visible to you all? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So this is a sticky plate. So we peel off the back, a bit like sellotape, peels off. This goes over the protruding colon, and then the bag clips on. All these sprays are for cleaning it, and these base plates don't come with a hole in, because every stoma is a different size. They're all different in terms of how far they protrude out, how flat they are, thin, fat, whatever. And this is what we have to do every day. We have to change this 2 or 3 times a day, no matter where we are. We have to manage it. For me, I had a Hartmann's colostomy with a permanent stoma, which was a sigmoid colon. As I said, many products are needed to enable us to manage these stomas. Diet and nutrition. I say thank goodness for the blood sugar balancing, because this has changed my life in terms of Rosie and me. We're best friends now. I don't have any blockages. I don't have any digestive problems. And I've been in hospital many times with blockages and emergency surgeries to remove a bit more of my colon. But thank goodness for HCA and where I am today, because I'm healthy again and I have energy to cope with Rosie. I just want to say why I called her Rosie. When my mum died, she loved roses. So on my right hip, I had just a small, subtle tattoo of a rose. So when I knew the stoma was permanent, I decided to call her Rosie. So I've got my mum at one side and I've got my best friend at the other. Basically, stoma patients encounter problems such as diet, finding comfortable clothing, emotional well-being, hygiene, physical problems. We must always avoid heavy lifting, emergency preparedness. We have to keep spare pouches and products with us wherever we go. In the boot of the car, in my handbag, I always have a spare bag. Cleaning products. Leaks. If we have a leak when we're out, which happens often, we have to find a toilet very quickly. I carry a little card that says I have to get to the toilet quickly, because in shopping centres, if you've ever been stood in a queue and you try and push to the front, oh, nobody likes that. So I run down the toilet queue with this card saying, stoma patient, and I still get eyes up in the air. But I overcome that as well because it's not their problem. So there'll be clients with other types of stomas as well. I'd just like to inform you, there's not just colon stomas, there's ileostomies, which are end of the small intestines, or urostomies, which is an opening in the abdomen to divert urine into a bag. I have a volunteer now who has all three, and her coping strategies are amazing. Every single one of these health traumas, the endometriosis, the hysterectomy, the near-death experience, the menopause, the hospice advocacy, and the chronic colon disease, diverticulitis, my stoma journey, culminated in a profound realization. My purpose wasn't just to survive. It was to serve. And this led me to wanting to become a certified health coach. And my big why is to use my personal experiences to guide and support others in their own health journeys, helping them how to continually take small, manageable steps, as I've done, towards a better life. My core philosophy now is simply born from a lifetime of lessons. And this can only begin by first caring for ourselves and then caring about others. And as a health coach, I'd like to specialise in chronic colon disease with a deep personal understanding of two specific areas: stoma individuals and menopausal women. So as I leave you today with this presentation, I really hope you've enjoyed it, but I want to share a simple but powerful HCA model for personal transformation, one that has guided me and resonated with me for the last year nearly. And it can guide you too, no matter what trauma you're going through. The great model: goals. What's your purpose? The triumph you want to achieve. Reality. What's your current situation and your trauma? How is that working for you? Explore. What are your options? What support could you get like I have? Your path. Your path is unique. All our paths are unique. And we all have choices. What we're going to achieve? What could get in the way? Look at my problems. How will we overcome? To get to that triumph, to take action. When will you begin to turn your trauma into triumph and honour our core values? I believe now in embracing a holistic lifestyle. Don't let your past define you. Let it guide you. Survival is the first chapter. Triumph, for me, is how you finish the book. I promise to share the titles of the books through my near-death experiences that I researched. And here they are, if you'd like to take a photograph. And the pro-mensal capsules, which are available in the UK, because I've been there and seen them, and in South Africa, and probably worldwide, if you want to go the alternative route. So I'd like to thank you so much for allowing me to give you this presentation, and I hope I've inspired you. If we can share just our story, and we all have one, and just transform just one life in our journey on earth, it's worth a journey. Thank you very much. I'm open to any questions now.
Oh, if you'd like to. Elaine, you are something else, honestly. I just want to thank you, Elaine and Rosie, and your sense of humor. And there actually aren't words. I mean, we can say inspiring, resilient, and invincible, but I mean, Emma said she's found a newfound appreciation for all that you have highlighted. I mean, we will never not be able to think of what you've told us in so many areas. You were extraordinary, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart, honestly. Thank you, Elaine. So, yeah. So we'll open for questions. I think Joe Cranwell had a question. Mia wanted to know natural menopause products, but unmute and come in with any question. And if you don't want we're continuing the recording. If you don't want your picture shown, then turn your camera off, call yourself anonymous. So, Joe, do you want to come forward with your question, or anyone else have a question or a observation for Elaine? I think we're a bit dumbstruck, actually.
Oh,
Sandy, what would you like?
sorry, I got upset. I didn't think I would.
I think your braveness has inspired all of us. So thank you so much for sharing. But I wanted to check with you the spelling of the name because I've got a lot of people that I know that are suffering with menopause. Is it pro men with MEN, or is there N before? Because I couldn't find it online now.
Yeah, Promensil.
Okay, because just to check in the presentation, I think it's got 2 N's.
Oh, sorry, that's a typo.
No, but that's great. That's amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it had to have men in because, we've got men for mental illness. Promensil. They're getting everywhere, those men, hey? Sorry.
And thank you, Dawn. Thank you, Dawn, for putting, I see you there, putting forward Elaine to do this for us. So, Joe, did you have your question?
Sorry about that. My iPad keeps disappearing with the icons. So yeah, sorry. Thank you for that. That was super interesting and really quite brave of you to share that in all its glory. So thank you. I thought it was very powerful. But my question actually was around. You mentioned something about having your genes mapped and you received your genetic reports, and then you went on to say that from that you could see that your hormones were very balanced, and I was just slightly confused. I just wanted a bit of clarity on that, if that's okay, because my understanding is that a genetic report will tell you give you your genes as an individual, but it won't necessarily give you your status as to whether your genes are currently upregulated or downregulated and how that might impact on your hormones. So maybe I've misinterpreted it. So if you could clarify, that would be amazing. Thank you.
Sure, I'll certainly try. I'm not very well up in this area, but in my genetic test, it just said that the estrogen levels and the progesterone levels were all very balanced, and the omegas were all very, very balanced as well. And yeah, I didn't need any HRT. So whatever I was doing with the blood sugar balancing and the exercising and the whole holistic lifestyle was working.
Yeah. So was that a blood test then that you had? Not. So you didn't have your genes mapped then?
No, I had 3 different tests.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. I've got my wires crossed as to, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
I had a urine test done, which was for the omegas, the fatty acids, and I had a gut biome, and I had a whole genetic test done as well for any family history or genetics in there.
The whole toolkit.
Yeah,
Full MOT.
from Norway, but through the UK. And it's very expensive, but very worthwhile to help our kids for their future.
Yeah,
Mm,
thank you.
thanks,
Pleasure.
Jo. Yeah, the testing can't determine balance. Blood tests confirm that. Thanks, Cara. Any questions or observations, or we have got time?
Someone's asked who she used in the UK.
Oh, thank you. Who did you use for testing in the UK?
Just put it in the chat box. And if you look up Vitagene, they're South African based, and I think in the UK as well. It was but it goes through Norway. So, but I can double check and get back to you. How can I have that, Mary? I will get.
I'll put it with the slides and the recording. Yeah.
Right. Okay. I'll get back to you, Mary. I'll make a note of that.
Joe has put Life Code GX does genetic mapping reports. And all the other testing, also there's Genova Diagnostics, who are very reputable in America. I've used them in the past, yeah.
Mm.
Please tell us about your blood sugar balancing. What does that mean? Can't unmute. Megan, would you like to come in?
Thank you. And thank you, Elaine, very much. That was very moving. And I was crying listening to you. So I can empathise with that feeling of overwhelm. And I'm about to tear up again now because I just find it so incredible, your story. I wanted to ask you, in all your experience with all the doctors and the medical staff at the hospitals that you and the many occasions you were there, was there ever a time when a doctor didn't focus on their one speciality of what was, what was wrong with you, and whether there was anyone who actually stood back and took a holistic view of you at any point to say there are so many things going on together, for you at that time? Did that happen at all at any stage? Was there anyone that you felt understood you more than another?
Good question. No, I felt very misunderstood, misdiagnosed, and not listened to be honest. And when I left the hospital many times, there was a big gap in the health system. There was just no support, which is when that whole turning point came in my life, which is what I've always done, probably made me be so resilient. I've always ended up researching everything myself and finding it out for myself. And I firmly believe there's nothing like self-help. And once I'd done that, then I went back to the doctors and I told them, this is what the problem is. Help me. And then, yeah, we got things done.
I think it's very difficult, isn't it, when you think that you go and you do all the research and then you try and present it, and sometimes things are dismissed by doctors because it's not their area of expertise, and they don't seem to want to know a lot of the time. I mean, there are some very, very excellent doctors and consultants around, but I think especially for the younger ones, they just can't comprehend that, it just has to be one thing. It can't be any more than one thing.
Well, I had a whole multidisciplinary team around me at the end, and before they finally took that part of the colon, and they couldn't agree on very much, really. So it was, yeah, very, very difficult and short time, but a necessary action had to. So
I think there's a common thread with people who have shared, like you have, Elaine, that they've done their own research. Yeah, I mean, we are responsible for our own health as well, aren't we? We can't just hand it over. And I've had nothing but fantastic experiences with NHS, like a lot of people have. But when it's really complex like this, it's a different story, isn't it? But
I think it's frightening for the doctors as well, in a way.
well, They're experts in one area usually, aren't they? So it's very
Well, we have a very good healthcare system in South Africa, and as Emma knows, I see Emma's on. She's had a similar problem to me with her colon. So maybe she'd like to elaborate a bit if we've got time.
Yes,
But I'd
we
just like to make this last connection that's very important, because you might all know somebody with endometriosis in their youth, because this is so significant and it really affects the sigmoid colon and diverticular disease. There's a strong connection later on in life, and I've only just learnt about that. And a lot of the doctors don't know about that yet. So that's very important to take away from this presentation.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Ah, gosh. So Emma, do you want to put your hand down, Sandy? And Emma.
Hi, Mary, and hi, everyone. And Elaine, especially, you are an absolute rock star. You really, really are. And I obviously, stoma, diverticulitis, endometriosis, we've had many chats. When I met Elaine at the 3-day conference, Nikki was so excited because for the first time in the room were the two people that had stomas. And so it's big excitement, you know, it's amazing the commonality because you both got something similar. But my question to you, Elaine, was based on what Megan had said, when you went in and you saw the doctors and that you didn't really feel heard, did you feel when you started to get all that information together, you could advocate for your health so much better when you had actually researched everything, more so than the first time around when you weren't quite sure what was going on or what the situation was? Did it change? Was there a change in the way that you approach things with doctors and the consultants and medical care and specialists after you found your information?
Yes, thank you for that. I did actually, because they couldn't pull the wool over my eyes anymore and just say, oh, it's another blockage or another operation. I started asking why. Why do they want to? Why can't they do something else? There was lots of whys then because I'd done my own research.
Okay. Did you feel more empowered?
I did, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, 150%. And more in control. And yeah, I wouldn't let them do any more operations, touch my colon. I was determined to get through this with my family support by doing it myself, finding another way, the blood sugar balancing diet. I've always exercised all my life, but just bringing all that together, this holistic approach helped me a great deal.
Thank you. And I'm sure we're going to have many more conversations, Elaine. So thank you so much for your courage and everything tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma.
Sandy had another question, and then we'll come to you, Zoe. I had another question, please. With endo being so hard to diagnose, do you think it's really important to get a diagnosis or treat as you did?
Sorry, can I clarify? Because I mean, the doctors told me they think I have endo, and my thing is to go through the whole trauma of trying to diagnose. And I speak to a lot of women who have this similar, you know, the IBS type stuff, and I'm wondering to rather treat naturally, because a lot of this I find is also linked to cortisol, right? There's a effect of the stress that your body goes through and then makes these symptoms worse. And so the way I'm targeting it is just to focus on the cortisol and the healthy healing the guts and all those type of things. So I wondered about the diagnosis process.
Well, for me, they couldn't diagnose, only when it was too late. As I said in my presentation, it takes 7 to 10 years on average to diagnose it. You probably know that, Sandy. How long has it been for you?
Well, they only mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. So, but it had been mentioned to me by friends through the years, and I just kind of like, oh, you know, it's probably not.
So. You know, the thing is, they don't know enough about this disease because there's not enough money goes into the research. That's the big problem here. Yeah.
So true.
So we have to do it ourselves. We have to research ourselves. And I'm willing to help. I can send you any information you wish.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Okay, so Zoe.
Thanks, Mary. Thank you, Elaine, for your amazing, incredible story. And it's great that you're going to focus on helping those patients. I'd love to know what your thoughts on how you would have benefited from a health coach during your story,
Oh,
your journey.
do you know what? As I was putting this presentation together, every slide I put up and I did, and every writing I did at the side of each slide, I thought, wish I'd have had a health coach. I wish health coaches were around years ago. It would have helped me so much more. Oh gosh, absolutely.
In what particular way?
Well, they would have been able to support me in my journey and also bridge that gap between the doctors always wanting to operate and take more of the colon, and instead of, they could have advised me more in terms of what a person should eat who suffers from diverticulitis, because then I didn't have enough information on it. So I was just damaging my colon more and more. And it all came to a head at 36,000 feet.
Thanks so much, Elaine. Take
Pleasure.
care.
Why does it take so long to diagnose endo?
Well, the research I've done, Mary, is there's not enough known about this disease. There's not enough money put into the research to find out more about it. I mean, a lot of the doctors, if you speak to them now, they don't even know. I had to approach them and say, do you know there's a big link between endometriosis and this colon disease, especially the sigmoid colon, because the endometrial tissue just loves the sigmoid colon and lands on there and causes scar tissue and bleeding and damage and holes in the colon that go along for years. You know, then you suddenly get in your 50s, 60s, and then it all falls apart.
Yeah.
They don't know the journey from endometriosis to sigmoid colon diseases. Yeah.
So you were answering a question for Sikona, and I just want to go back to that question that Zoe asked. You know, I mean, we are needed. We are totally needed, and there's nothing that we can't work with. It's the support, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So very interesting. So Erna, then Gail, and I'm aware of the time. If you do need to go, I know it's late. If people do need to go, just slip away and have something to eat or whatever you need. But let's Erna, what would you like to ask?
Hi, Mary. Hi, Elaine. Thank you so much for sharing. I know I'm kind of candlelit here. I just wanted to say to you, Elaine, thank you. There's been so many points along your amazingly resilient, well, the words fail me, journey. I just recently had a total hysterectomy, and I've had issues with my colon. And every time I have issues with my colon, they do an abdomen scan and they go, "Oh, go to the gynecologist. We see something worrying." And it's so crazy because when I was 22, they told me, "Oh, you have growths." So they did the laparoscopic thing, and endometriosis was an issue. Not 22, sorry, 32. But no one helped me. And you know, the pain. My mom had her total hysterectomy when she was 36, and I don't know if there's a link genetically, but the pain it affected me on so many levels for so many years. So when I finally went into menopause, I was like, oh, thank God, I'm not going to have my periods anymore, you know? And a lot of people kind of feel like, oh, like you don't feel like a woman. But for me, I felt quite liberated. And then more issues. And it's like you have to fight to say something's really wrong, but no one really understands the gravity. So when they removed all my bits and they first said, oh, we'll just take the uterus. But then they decided when they went in that the endometrial lining had grown into all weird places. They took everything. And then they were like, oh my gosh, you would have been in so much pain. It was really ugly looking parts that were removed. And I just want to say thank you for sharing, because my father had stage 4 colon cancer. I have to go for constant checks, and they found little blockages already. So your story has now motivated me to be more mindful and listen to my body, that if something feels wrong, to trust it and not leave it in the hands of carers or medical staff. And we shut people down, and they have a right to say something is wrong. Please listen to me. And so as a health coach, I take that away, and thank you. Listening is so powerful.
It's my pleasure, and I'm sorry for your journey. I do understand, and I know how challenging it must be for you. So thank you for speaking up and making me feel better.
Thank you. Well, mine pales in comparison. Nothing in comparison, but just for others to know that it's a real thing. And I feel so blessed because I'm recovering. I just had surgery very recently, and yet I'm surrounded by you amazing people, and I'm still able to complete my course. So thank you, Elaine. You're an absolute angel. Thank you.
Very welcome.
Yeah. And Erna, you're nearly there. You're going to be the most wonderful health coach.
Almost.
Can't see you there.
Yeah, I know. I'm hiding.
See you soon, Erna. You're.
Thank you
so much.
And yes, love to you all. Thank you.
So Elaine, will you share your details with your final slide, and when I upload them, because there is someone who wants to contact you. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So Gail, and then Lara, and then good night.
Hi. Thanks,
Gail.
Thank you, Mary. Hello, Elaine. I think
Hello,
should
Gail.
you go to any fancy dress parties in the future, your outfit is definitely going to be Wonder Woman, isn't it?
I like that.
That's a definite choice. No, I just want to say I have a young friend, a young woman in her 30s who I used to work with for a number of years. She was constantly having time off work. Every time she, had a period, she would have days off work. She was obviously suffering severe pain. And it's been going on for about 10 years, actually. So I think it started probably in her 20s. And just very recently, she has finally been diagnosed with what I understand. I had never even heard of it before, but I believe it's a sister condition to endometriosis called adenomyosis, where I believe the tissue that should come away during a period actually is growing through the side of her uterus. So she has been told at the age of, as I say, early 30s, and I know that for a lot of years she's wanted to have a child, that she's been told she'll have to have a full hysterectomy. So it's taken at least 10 years to be diagnosed, but they've also told her she might have to wait a couple of years to even have the hysterectomy. So even with the diagnosis and there's no treatment in the meantime, so there's really not much of a light at the end of the tunnel for her either, which is just shocking. And we just constantly hear about women who suffer gynecological conditions and are in a lot of pain for years and are either just continually sent away with painkillers or whatever, or told that they're imagining things. And it's really appalling.
It is. Right. And I didn't mention, but they tried to stop my periods, the gynecologist in the UK, and they put me on this terrible hormone. It was called danazol. And they said their idea then was if they stopped the periods, it would all be okay. And they put me on this terrible hormone. And I started to grow facial hair, and my voice deepened, and it was awful. I had to come off it. No, it was awful.
Yeah. Well, anyway, thank you for enlightening us considerably this evening. Very
Thank
kind
you.
of you.
Sorry.
So Lara.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Elaine.
Hello,
I've had
Lara.
the privilege of connecting with Elaine through HCA. So thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing your story. It was really, really so heartwarming. And to see from what you've gone through to where you're at and where you're going, You're such an inspiration. So I just want to give you a big hug from here. And I don't know how much time we have. If you have 5 minutes to share your near-death experience, I don't know who's all comfortable hearing that. I know there were some questions in the chat.
Should we then close the official session now, but to stay on for the NDE?
NDE.
Yes. Would you like to do that, Elaine? And we can.
Don't mind, with pleasure. Yeah.
Okay. So those who need to go now, that's, have a lovely evening. But
Well,
yeah.
thank you, everybody.
But we will stay to hear the near-death experience. Thank you, Elaine.
Pleasure. Thank you. Well, okay, so it was when I was 21 and I had a cesarean section with my daughter, and it was an emergency. And all I remember is, I'm just going to explain it from memory because it's so vivid. All I remember is all the machines started going off as I was lying in the bed, in the hospital bed. Next thing, they brought a trolley and they were rushing me down to surgery. And what I remember after that is I was up in the corner of the room and I looked down at myself and I thought, oh, I'm crouched up in the corner of the room here. What's going on? And the next thing I thought, what? Where's my legs? And I looked down, I didn't have any legs, but I was just this orange glow. I thought, well, that's weird. And in my mind, I tried to tell myself that, oh, well, maybe my knees are up and I'm just holding my knees up. Then I said, but why am I orange? Anyway, the next thing, I looked around the room and I saw this person sat in a chair with their back to me. I thought, who's that person sat there? And I'm up here in the corner. And this person kept looking down like this. I thought, what's he looking at? So I came down from the corner of the room to see who this person was. And it was my husband. I thought, that's my husband. What's he holding in his hands? So I looked and I thought, oh, it's a baby. Well, I was frantic. I thought, well, if he's holding a baby and I'm here. So I started running around the room saying, Jerry, Jerry, I'm here. I'm here. Nobody could hear me. So I looked at the bed and there was this person lying on the bed and there was a white sheet over them just to here. I thought, hang on, my husband's there. He's holding a baby. I'm here, flying around the room trying to get his attention. So who's lying on the bed? When I had a look, it was me. And I was drip white. And I began to panic, running around the room again, getting somebody to hear me, but they couldn't. So I thought to myself, oh, gosh. Well, then I saw this nurse. She was Indigenous nurse in colour and quite a big lady. I'll never forget how she looked. And I tried shouting to her, don't put that sheet over my head. I'm not dead, I'm here. She couldn't hear me either. So I thought, if I can just move the smallest thing in my body, what is it? So I tried to move my baby finger. I couldn't move anything because I wasn't in my body. With that, I went shh, back into the corner of the room. It was like a traveller, so fast as light. I could just think where I wanted to be, and I was there. So I went back into the corner of the room. Then I saw these two orange figures coming towards me, and I thought, hang on, they're the same colour as me. They must be from the same place. They were both coming towards me, but they went straight by me, ignored me. I thought, ignorant devils, fancy ignoring me, they're the same colour. And they went through the wall. So then I'm thinking, well, nobody can hear me here in this room. I'm going to follow them. They're the same colour. So I went through the wall and I thought, oh, I actually got through the wall. Next thing, I was in this big white cylindrical tunnel. And I don't know if any of you remember the Chesterfield furniture. It was all leather on the sides with the buttons in. And I was bouncing down this tunnel to this light at the end. But now below me, when I looked down, I thought, oh my goodness. I mean, I've read in the Bible, you know, the valley of death. But when I looked down, there are all these ghouls and horrible things. And I thought, no, I'm staying up here. I'm running. So I'm bouncing along this tunnel on this wonderful Chesterfield furniture, which I thought it was, keeping my legs up so these things couldn't pull me under. And I saw this big light and I just ran towards the light. When I got to the light, I really wanted to go through. I felt so peaceful. And I saw this hand come through the light and it said, go back. And I remember I felt like crying. I thought, don't want to go back. It's lovely where I am. It said, go back. It's not your time. With that, I heard the nurse's voice shout from behind me because I was going towards the light. She shouted, Mrs. Wigglesworth, wake up. You've got a baby girl. Well, all through my pregnancy, I wanted a girl first. So in hearing that, I thought, oh, I've got to go back for my baby girl. I always wanted a baby girl. So I thought I'm going to risk everything and I'm just going to run back. I turned round in the tunnel, ran back, and then shh, I was back in my body. But now I still couldn't move, but now I knew I was back in my body. And I thought, how can I let them know I'm alive so she doesn't pull that sheet over my head still? And I remembered, I thought, if I can just move that baby finger. And now I was back in my body, I moved my baby finger. And the nurse said, she's alive, she's back, she's okay. And that's all I can tell you, that's all I remember.
That's your bedtime story, Lara.
Wonderful experience. Never afraid of dying at all since then. I know where we're going.
Thank you for sharing that, Elaine. Thank you. Sure, I have goosebumps. Thank you.
We're all going to meet there in this wonderful, serene place.
Reassuring. So thank you, Elaine. So I will send you the chat so you can read what people have been saying. Bless you. And I will see you Thursday evening. Lovely. So thank you so much. And
thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mary, very much.
All right, then. So I'm going to... So this was now 90 minutes, we'll say, if you're still here, of live contact time. There was no coaching today. All right. So good night, everybody.
Everybody, sweet dreams.
Yeah, sweet dreams. Okay. Bye-bye.
Good night.